Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Kelly Hale, nervous system regulation expert and creator of the Gutsy brain movement. And we'll learn from her how regulating your nervous system, not just managing stress, can transform your health, mindset, and digestion. We discovered the powerful link between our brain, body, and gut, and how to shift from survival mode to sustainable success. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Kelly. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We will be talking about how one can regulate their nervous system to thrive and also about the connection with gut. We'll talk about all this, but let's at the moment talk a bit about your background, your journey, your story, so that audience knows who they are listening to.
Sure. So I come to nervous system regulation from a very unique perspective. I love that nervous system regulation is becoming more of a household term. People are talking about it. Everyone's tying it to every facet of health and lifestyle and finances, which is great. Now, one thing that I really love about nervous system regulation is that everything you need to regulate your nervous system is within you. And I come to it from the perspective as an occupational therapist for 25 plus years, brain gym practitioner, and reflex and nervous system regulation practitioner. So it's really important to think about how nervous system regulation is coming into the forefront now. And a lot of people will say, oh, just do some breathing exercises and it'll dial everything down. And then you'll go from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. But if your innate nervous system structures, if your developmental sequences, your developmental movements, your reflexes are tripped up in a state of stress, in other words, if you're in fight, flight, freeze, all the breathing exercises in the world aren't going to do it for you. We need to go a little bit deeper into the experience by going back to early developmental movements. And I've had the joy of serving people for, as I said, over 25 years. And I like to say that I have the pleasure of helping people move out of fight, flight, freeze and live a life with ease with very simple tools that can take 3 minutes or less, and they're movement based. Now, I have that opportunity and that privilege of serving others, but I have to be fully transparent that I was on my own journey for many, many years. I pushed through life in fight, flight, freeze. I was a high achiever. Some would say an overachiever. And I got there in a way that really was from a place of stress, a place of survival. And sure, I got things done, but at the expense of my health and my function. And so I'm so grateful to have these tools. I really do live the work and have these tools so that I can move through life. Most of the time, it's easy to, slip back to old habits, but most of the time in that place of ease and integration.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kelly. So let's understand it from from this point. You talk about your gut is talking, and are you listening? The hidden connection between your brain, body, and belly. Help us understand about this. I think gut talks, and people know. They know when they are hungry. They know when they're not. But what is it that you talk about the gut here?
Yes, I love talking about that connection because so many people miss the connection. The nervous system is so tied to the gut. For example, the vagus nerve. Everybody loves to talk about the vagus nerve. It's one of those cranial nerves. It's the longest cranial nerve, starts up behind the eyes and the brain, comes all the way down through the trunk body. It comes beside the stomach and actually kind of runs past a sphincter there, the cardiac sphincter that's really important, comes all the way down and attaches at the pubic bone. So this vagus nerve has a lot of interface with the GI system. And I don't feel that the vagus nerve is the be all end all, but when we talk about gut health, we do have to talk about the vagus nerve. And if it's tripped up or stressed out or even structurally tense, if we have some neural tension in there, that's going to create some issues. Now, a lot of us go through life in fight, flight, freeze. And I like to say, Are you eating your meal with the saber-toothed tiger at the table with you? Because a lot of people sit down to eat, which should be a grounding, relaxing, nourishing, connecting experience, but they're in that place of fight, flight, freeze. So their digestion is thwarted from the beginning, from the very first bite. So I do a lot of nervous system regulation exercises to get people out of fight, flight, freeze before they eat while they're working on digestion. And my approach is also unique in that we do visceral exercises, i.e., organ exercises, to open and balance the tone of the organs so that the structures can work as they're supposed to. So when I talk about gut health, I'm not talking about another pill, another powder, another detox. Those can be great. But if you're not regulated, if you go to do those things and you're stuck in fight, flight, freeze, and your organs of elimination, your intestines, your stomach, your liver are not working well, you cannot expect any detoxification attempt to work well until you first do those nervous system regulation tools. And I dive deep into that in a program called the Gut Feeling Reset, where it's a precursor to doing any sort of cleanse or shift in your diet. And we focus on nervous system, gut exercises, organ exercises, movement to support the gut, and movement to work through emotions, because digestion and nourishment can be very, very emotional for people.
Absolutely. So a lot of people do not take action until unless they feel the reaction, the negatives of whatever they have been doing. So when do they know that things are not working well within their body? Normally, a lot of people still feel not so good in terms of the gut, your belly. But then people get along with their life. But when is it that they need to sit back, sit up and take notice? Which is the point that they. And also, prevention is better than cure. I want to understand from both the perspectives, Kelly.
Yeah, that's such a valid point that you bring up. Most people just push through life and they have this background discomfort. They have this, uneasiness, but they just keep pushing through until their system, their body, their nervous system, their structure tells them that they can no longer push through. They're really having to put on the brakes. But what people will notice is that, they have that feeling of stress. They can't calm down. Some people have difficulty swallowing, which certainly get that checked out structurally with your healthcare providers. But sometimes it's that tightness, that constriction, that when we do some of the organ exercises to open and release, that can be so much easier. And people will feel that inability. Sometimes people have difficulty sleeping, a difficulty focusing. Anxiety is huge. People will have issues with how their elimination happens. Maybe they're going to the bathroom more frequently, or they're not going often enough, and it's very challenging and very stressful for them. That's a natural, normal process. Elimination should happen with ease. But all of these kinds of signs show up and start to tell people that something's going on. Or maybe they go to eat and they can barely eat anything because they start to feel nauseous right away. And that's also, again, you want to get it checked out by your healthcare providers. But if it's ruled out to be anything that needs attention in that route, then very often some nervous system regulation can be tied to that. Can we calm down that cardiac sphincter I just mentioned that is tied to stress and anxiety? Can we work with certain structures of the intestines that have to do with releasing and being at ease? All sorts of structures in there are tied to certain emotions and stressors. And we might start with a very simple primitive reflex movement, such as the fear paralysis reflex, which dials down anxiety with some very gentle self-touch and tapping, different than the emotional freedom technique tapping, which is great. But this is tapping that is specific to the nervous system for this particular reflex, one of the major reflexes that get us stuck into fight, flight, freeze.
Absolutely. So, how do they get started? You just talked about something. Does that work? A lot of people have stress as part of their lives. Now, how do you know which stress is actually putting a lot of stress on you, on your overall being? Because we cannot run away. We are always in a hurry. We got to reach office in time. that time when you are having your food, whatever you are taking, that time also your focus is on the clock, on the watch. To help us understand how can someone get started, especially someone who is busy, who has to also take care of their bread and butter.
Absolutely. And probably taking care of some family in there too. Oh, that is such an important area to pause and talk about, because we have lives that are full and stressful. It's not like we can just go live in the forest and have ease. We have to be able to function through life. And I think when it comes to digestion and eating, doing some very simple things, going for a walk before and after you eat. Actually, I grew up in an era when our mothers told us, do not exercise, do not play after eating because you have to digest. Don't go in the swimming pool. And we hated that as kids. We wanted to go right back to our activities. But now the research shows that by eating after our meal, and walking after our meal, it doesn't have to be anything vigorous. We can definitely support digestion and balance blood sugar. So movement is going to be something that I definitely recommend. And also a pause. Pausing before we eat, before we nourish ourselves. And there's a particular movement, which since we're, visual here, I know this will also be only audio, but there's a reflex, the asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, which, let me just pause and say, reflexes are those movements that we do early in life, in the womb, in the first few years of life, that lay the scaffolding for our nervous system and then help us go into volitional movement down the road. Now, we as kids, because we didn't have screens, we weren't, stuck on devices, we played, we moved, we most likely integrated and, let's say, resolved all of these reflexes, but life, stress, trauma, illness, car accidents come up. And so that stressor, whatever stress it could be in life, could cause you to trip up what should be in the background, just working naturally. So I like to teach people the pause reflex, again, back to the ATNR, asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, turning to one side, looking out with a straight arm, bending the opposite knee and opposite arm, and that leg is straight. So if I were to do this in standing, I've got the leg is straight on this side, and I'm shifting to look at the straight arm. This arm is bent, opposite arm and knee, and then I'm going to shift to the other side after holding for 6 seconds, at least 6 seconds. This can be done seated. I encourage a lot of people to do this before they actually eat their meal so they can be in the present moment. That drops us into the present moment. And that is also my unique approach to nervous system regulation. Most of it is movement-based or some self-gentle tactile input. We need that sensory input, but just taking a moment. Many cultures will take a moment to express gratitude or prayer before they eat. And that's wonderful. What if you could take a moment to align your nervous system before you eat? And then things so simple, making sure you actually chew your food, making sure, maybe you have to eat at a desk at work. Could you turn your back to your computer at least so that you're not taking in that screen while you're eating? And if you're lucky enough to have a window, could you look out the window and see what's happening in nature? Look further away because you're looking so close on your screen all the time. Go out there and look out in nature, and then look a little bit closer to help get yourself out of the stressful eye lock position. So those are some simple things you could start with.
Absolutely, Kelly. So, I want to understand your gutsy brain movement. We'll talk about that after this. But first, I nowadays get to hear about this IBS thing a lot than I used to earlier on. What is this whole IBS thing about? And does it also come under what you do, taking care of that? What are the simplest ways people can take off any IBS related issues, if at all they have?
I'm not sure I heard the full question. I'm sorry. Did you say what kind of issue?
Yeah, IBS,
Oh,
irritable.
IBS. IBS.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Yes. So IBS, irritable bowel, and I like to think of it as the cranky bowel. And again, there definitely needs to be support from the healthcare providers to make sure that the individual is getting what they need. Sometimes it involves medication. Sometimes it involves that for a period of time. And then something else, that's for the person to decide with their physician. But with IBS, there is often a sense of urgency and lack of control. And I have lived there. I actually have celiac disease myself. And for many years, it was diagnosed as IBS before I got the full diagnosis of celiac. And people can have both, of course. And there's this sensation of urgency. There's this sensation of not having control, and being able to ground ourselves in our nervous system is really, really important. And again, I go back to these early developmental movements and reflexes. And one very simple exercise that people could do, and this is from the Brain Gym body of work, GYM. And Brain Gym is a great tool that integrates the brain and the body. And it was first developed to support education and learning. And as adults, we're learning how to deal with stressors, right? So we need this too. So make sure your feet are on the ground, and then take 2 fingers and put them at your chin. Take the other hand. You could do this standing, but whatever you do, you want to make sure your feet are on the ground. 2 fingers on your chin, 1 hand on your belly button. Point that hand down. If it's more comfortable for your wrist to stay horizontal, that's fine too. But if you point the hand down and just stay in this moment, what you're doing is you're connecting to the midline of your body. The midline of our body is our safe space. Earliest development starts at the midline and works outward from there. And we're connecting to this midline. To be able to use our limbs, to be able to walk forward, we have to have an understanding of midline. And so we're in this position, and holding this for however long the person feels connected to is a great way to feel grounded. So if someone's in a flare-up of IBS, which is a really stressful, challenging time, that's a great exercise to do. I also love to teach people dealing with the symptoms of IBS those organ release exercises. I teach a lot of organ releases in my programs. They're not vigorous. They're kind of funky positions where you're getting the organ in a position to open and release and balance the tone and decrease spasticity, which is very important with IBS. We want to dial down that spastic response in the organ tissue.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kelly. Now coming to the Gutsy brain movement. You are the creator of this. What is this Gutsy brain movement? Tell us a bit about that. Who is it for?
Sure, thank you. So the Gutsy brain movement is what I created after years of supporting people with nervous system and dialing down anxiety, and also supporting them with their structure. Part of my training is in Pilates and corrective exercise, but you can't expect your joints and your body to show up for you if you're constantly in fight, flight, freeze, if the body doesn't feel safe. So we bring the brain and the movement together, and we support the gut. For example, we're going to do leg swings and mini squats that support the gut via the pelvic floor. And then we're going to do, actually would start with our nervous system regulation first, doing some movements to get our nervous system primed. Then in standing, we might do some of those hip swings and mini squats to get the GI system, the gut primed. And then we're going to get on the floor and do exercises that allow us to integrate and release the gut tissue from the perspective of the nervous system. And the great thing about the Gutsy brain movement is it's accessible to everyone. You know, I serve people that their daily walk might be walking to the mailbox, and that's what they can do right now. And they're working on trying to walk further. And so the Gutsy brain movement is my membership, where every month we do what are called work-ins. Like I just described, exercises starting with nervous system regulation, some core work, some structural work. And we also do what are called 10-minute emotions in motion. We move through emotions instead of just letting them get pushed down further and further so that we can process emotions. And we also do a 30-minute gut recharge, exercises just for the gut. And then once a month, we do what's called Ease Embodied. And that is sort of a moving meditation. It's the deeper nervous system regulation. And of course, it's all virtual, and we have the opportunity, people can kind of pick and choose what works for them in that moment. And the person that's best served by this is very often a person that realizes or starting to uncover the connection between their gut and their nervous system. And they also probably have a history of some joint issues. They're not out there running marathons. They've got some challenges with their spine or their joints, and they want to be able to be strong and functional. And this is accessible to them.
Wonderful, wonderful. There is so much to learn from you about all this, Kelly, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn about how to about all these connections, and become the best version of themselves in terms of good health. What is the best way for them to do so?
Sure. So the best way is going to be my Facebook group, Nervous System Regulation with Kelly Hale, because I share tons of free content in there. You can find that. And also you can find me on Instagram at inspired2 wellness. So I'm on those two pretty often, pretty frequently. And also, if someone wants to learn some of these very simple nervous system regulation tools, you can go to my Inner Peace free gift, 3 short videos at inspiredwell.com/inner peace. So lots of different ways, whatever feels easiest for your viewers.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.